Hello and welcome. It's the Holy Hour Podcast, the bi-weekly All Cure podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Gavin. I hope you guys are all doing well out there and had a good time celebrating the birth of Robert Smith just a week back or so, Easter Sunday. Robert Smith turned 60 years old, so we want to say an official happy birthday to Robert right at the top of this episode. There was lots of great social media love going out there, but couldn't be a podcast about the Cure without officially recording a happy 60th birthday to Robert Smith last Sunday. Our true savior, as I like to say. I hope he did something that whatever he does to make his heart happy on his birthday and had a great one. And we expect to celebrate your birthday for at least 60 more years, Robert. So thank you for all you've done for all of us and all the great music you've put out into the world. And 60 years, flawless. So, we got lots to celebrate, though. So we're coming off the heels of the rock and roll induction, Robert Smith's birthday. What more could we possibly praise this band with? But guess what? On Thursday, I believe of this week, May 2nd, will mark the 30th anniversary. 1989, May 2nd, 30th anniversary of the release of the greatest album ever recorded by anyone anywhere, Disintegration. And wow, what an amazing record. What can you do? How can you possibly go over this again? If you've been following our show, you know that Donald and I did our album review of Disintegration. I think it's a little over a year ago now, but it still feels fairly fresh. We really dug into that one, and I think we definitely cracked 2 hours on it and tried to do the whole process, pre-recording, where the band was at, why they took the direction they did with it, what was going on within the band, what was going on, in the world in 1989 as the Cure released this album, and the reactions. We did the song by song, so I highly recommend, if you didn't check out the actual episode, go back and listen to the episode. It should at least be on YouTube. I don't know how the iTunes thing where it cuts after about a year, but it's definitely on YouTube, so go find the Disintegration episode, and if you really want to dive into that album. But we wanted to take another approach for this 30th anniversary, so we're breaking it up into two segments, basically. And what we wanted to do, if you've also been following the show, you realize our buddy Chaz from 17 Second Shirts didn't quite jump on board until about Wish officially. We had him as a guest a bunch of times, but now we've kind of roped him in to doing all the album reviews with us and other topics more frequently, and we love having him on, and we're all just bummed that we missed the boat on having him on for Disintegration, and I know how much he loves that album. So we thought one of the cool different approaches we could take for celebrating the 30th anniversary of Disintegration would be kind of just letting Chaz have the platform and really get his scoop on his perspective of Disintegration, since Donald and I rambled on pretty good in that other episode. So I think if you really need more nitty gritty from us, go check that one out. But Chaz does he really focuses on the diving into the lyrics and the lyrics of Disintegration, which we don't really do too much on this show. We try to not consciously steer away from it, but it is so interpretation based, and there's no real way to prove any of it unless there's the scattered interview comment. But but it's fun to do occasionally, and Chaz does a great job of just really diving into his interpretations of the lyrics. And so we'll dive into that. We also do just kind of a general, why is this album still relevant? How on earth could it keep getting better with every listen since 1989? And, what makes this album great in the Cure's catalog even? Why is this the one that everybody always refers back to, makes a big deal about? Why is this the one that they're going to play 4 nights, or at least, is it 4 nights in Sydney, Australia, celebrating all the way through? Why this album? Why did it break them through to the mainstream so big when it's such a dark and heavy album? So we're going to look at all of that. But we have an extra special treat for you guys that we're doing for Act 1 of this episode, if you will. And it's very cool. I'm always griping that there aren't one more Cure podcast out there. I would love it if there's a billion of these podcasts out there so we could all feed off of each other. But I'm also like, why aren't there just other bands that I love? There aren't really that many like just solid music podcast about one artist or one band. And sure enough, I stumbled across about a few months back now, maybe almost a year. There's an Echo the Bunnymen podcast out there called Is There an Echo in Here? And it's on iTunes and elsewhere probably, but I know for sure it's on iTunes. And it's a great podcast. It's really cool. It's a husband and wife couple, and they really dig in deep, and they've got their shit way more together than here at the Holy Hour, that's for sure. But they still keep it very loose and fun. It's not just reading Wikipedia entries. They do serious research and have great opinions and conversation and dialogue about all these topics. And, you know, they're just kind of scratching the surface on it too. There's like 9 episodes, I believe, out so far. And they stretch back to, they do I think the first one, maybe they kick it off really cool with just a Liverpool episode where they just dig into the whole history of Liverpool and the gradual uprising of the music scene and how it leads eventually up to Echo and the Bunnymen. And lots of cool, just kind of side thought conversations like that. They haven't even done full on albums yet. They do introductions to the bands. There's a great episode where Courtney, one of the hosts of the show, goes to see Echo and the Bunnymen live and even runs into Ian at the end. She meets him, so pretty rad. And then the crazy part is I dug into this wonderful new podcast, found out that Courtney and Shane, who host the podcast, live right here in Asheville. And I'm like, what? Asheville, North Carolina. That's where I am. So small world, very crazy. And it turns out that Shane even I crossed paths with back in the music days when I was playing live music more. He went to school with my buddy that I played in a band with here in town. And is an amazing guitarist. He's just widely respected throughout Asheville and all around the world probably at this point. I know he tours a lot with his bands, and just an amazing person and guitarist, and really cool. So I couldn't be more thrilled, and we're definitely trying to organize some kind of crossover episode because it is so much crossover there, and why not, right? That would be awesome. But it turns out in listening to this awesome new podcast too, The Cure gets mentioned a few times, and it turned out that Courtney is a pretty big Cure fan too, and definitely had some love for Disintegration. So I figured this would be a great time to introduce her and the podcast to you, and also share some outside input on Disintegration and its 30-year history. So I'd love to kick off the episode now with a segment sent in from our newest buddies, Courtney and Shane from the Is There an Echo in Here podcast, with their thoughts on Disintegration 30 years on.
First of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be on the Holy Hour podcast. I could go on and on, but our time is limited, so I'm just going to get right into it. We have between 10 and 20 minutes. We should kind of time ourselves. Disintegration. So before I get into how I heard the album, I want to talk about something that we've talked about on our podcast before, which is what a dark period the years of 1986 to 1988, 89 were.
Right.
You know, we got Bring Me a Higher Love.
Bring me a higher love.
You have your Paula Abdul. You got,
Here's a cold-hearted snake.
Girl,
looking to rise.
Uh-oh. You got, bless her heart, Whitney Houston was just not really my thing. You got,
oh, I want to dance with somebody.
You got New Kids on the Block. And even like
Listen up, everybody, if you want to take a chance. Just get on the floor and do the New Kids dance.
So you had all that going on, right? And for myself, as a young person, there had been some, really good music coming out in the early 80s that I had been into. But as an 11-year-old, ages 9 to 11, I was really, really, really into the Police. And, that was kind of it.
That was it, yeah. You were so into the Police, you were into, all of the Stuart Copeland side projects.
Oh, I mean, all the soundtracks that he did. He was my main guy in the band. So, anyway,
That's why you married me.
Because Shane kind of looks like Stuart Copeland, right? So here I am. I'm 11 years old. And I'm already kind of depressed because our family's kind of starting to fall apart, and we moved out of Atlanta, which is my favorite place. I still kind of romanticize that city. I love it. And I remember in the summer of 1989, I was going to go back and stay with my friend, my sweet, just dear, sweet friend, Sarah Calvert. She was just one of those kids like that, to this day, if I ran into her, I just know I would love her. Like, she was just my really kind, sweet friend. And I was going to go and visit her for like 2 weeks or something. It was a really long time because her father had a brain injury. And he was in recovery and living with his mother, who was a friend of my parents. So,
wow.
So the summer of '89, I went to visit her, and I remember her grandmother lived in this big, just this, to me, like a castle. But I'm sure it was just like a very large house in Atlanta that had this, this room that was made of stone. It was like, I'm sure it was the size of like a large living room or game room, but it was just this huge hall of rock to me. And her father couldn't drive a car, so he was riding his bike to the grocery store to work every day. And it was a very kind of landlocked experience where we could walk to the pool down the street, but otherwise we're indoors in this very hot city all day long. So I remember,
How long was the visit?
I think it seemed really long, but time is weird, but maybe 2 weeks or something.
Okay.
So sometime in that first week, I remember my parents had given me $20 spending money. And I remember her aunt came to visit, and her aunt was able to drive us somewhere. And she drove us to like a CD warehouse or like some kind of record shop somewhere near Virginia Highlands. And, I had seen this music video as school was ending. I remember MTV was on before school, and I heard these like kind of organs, and I looked up, and there's this man in a cave with lipstick, and I was like, wow, this song is so gorgeous. The Cure. All right. Someday I will get that tape one of these days. Wow. If I ever get my hands on some money. So I had this $20 and we went to this, tape store, and I bought a tape. The tape, Disintegration. It had this guy's face in the cover. And I remember on the way home, we had like our Walkman and our headphones ready, and I put it on, and I heard the chimes of Plainsong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when my life changed, basically. That was like sort of a loss of innocence. Nothing ever has sounded or ever will sound as good as that album sounded. To me, it eclipsed everything I'd ever heard. The Police sounded totally dumb to me after that. Every album. Yeah. I still can't put it on. Anything that comes before or after it will sound dumb to me.
Yeah.
And lo-fi. Just the sonic. To me, it was like, I'm sure when people heard Lucky Man by Emerson, Lake and Palmer for the first time, and were like, what is this, sonic, this extraordinary sound? And I'd heard some stuff. I'd heard some hi-fi, sound and stuff before. There's nothing like this.
It's like
album.
A hug. As I was thinking this morning.
A hug from God.
Yeah, like a sonic hug. But it's like a soul hug.
Oh, and it said on the CD, or on the tape, because I would look at them very closely, it said, please play this album loud. I'm sure everybody remembers that.
Oh,
all
that's
fans.
Cool.
And so I did. And I'm sure my ears have suffered. But what I remember about the rest of the trip is my sweet friend was there to hang out. But I just was going to be listening to this album with my headphones on for the rest of the trip.
Yeah, wow.
And she'd be like, you want to hang out? Do you want to watch a movie? I'd be like, I'd love to, but I'm gonna be listening to this album today.
I'm busy.
So I'm going to sit in the rock room. Oh, there's our Chihuahua.
I'm going to remove Chihuahua from room now.
So I would sit and just with the headphones on, I don't know, meditating. Sometimes I'd draw. Sometimes I would try to draw Robert Smith's face. I would just sit there and listen endlessly to this album. It was one of those albums, too, where each song is better than the one before it. And it just I mean, it was unbelievable. I'd never heard an album like that. I was used to kind of skipping around a Police album, you know, and like a dud here, a dud there, and then a good song. And then, but this was just and so thematic that it was so dark, and it was sort of like a ominous, it sort of ushered in the depression that I needed to feel, that I was already feeling, gave voice to it. It really was like a loss of innocence. Like, I mean, so this is when, well, Shane just took a bite of a pancake, so maybe I'll keep talking for just a minute more because I want to pass the mic. But, yeah, and you're still chewing?
Yeah, so.
Well, okay, here's one thing I'll say.
Okay.
The theme of this album is just, I remember in the Holy Hour podcast and the other episode they did, they were talking about how Robert Smith was doing a lot of acid during the making of this album. He was kind of revisiting acid. And when I think of acid, I think of like Let's Go to Bed or like some kooky Love Cats or whatever. When this man takes acid, I guess he just meditates on the disintegration of a family. The song Disintegration, which is probably my favorite song in the world, like really one of them. That
Beautiful
song, and definitely my favorite Cure song. No, that's not Disintegration.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh.
Well, yeah, you know, and maybe I should pass the mic, but first I want to say, like, that song is just about a guy leaving his family. It's just the story. To me, that's what it is to me. I mean, It's about a guy who is walking out on his family. He knew he would. I mean, just super depressing. Nothing more depressing than a man leaving his family. And then that note, I'll just let Shane come in.
Isn't it kind of like, it feels very uplifting to me though.
All right.
All right, I'm going to talk fast. I'm going to talk fast here because we don't got a lot of time. Listen. I'm going to be honest here. I listened to this album for the first time from beginning to end this morning.
Okay, now listen. He was 20 years I've been trying to get him to listen to it.
No, that's not to say I haven't listened to the whole thing before, because every song is familiar to me to some degree, some more than others. But the latter few songs, maybe less so, only because they're at the end. But
good. That's a good closer, man. I love.
Oh, it's good. The song starts.
Untitled's favorite.
Yeah, the album starts with some wind chimes. It ends with an accordion. It's a strange place in my life because The Cure in high school, I wished I had gotten to this album when I was younger. And I feel like I am now. And it's a great thing about podcasting and talking about things because you kind of go into it more deeply than you would like at most things as an adult, because you're like, oh, I feel like I'm more immersed in the world. So I kind of get to have that renegotiation of my childhood where I wish I liked The Cure, because I always liked the kids wearing The Cure shirts.
They're the good kids.
They were the nice ones. Mm-hmm. But I was an asshole because I grew up in like a toxic environment, and I was more, Roger Waters, Pink Floyd, and I was a metalhead, and I was more just like kind of snarky and like very disturbed. Speaking of acid, I was also taking acid and going to high school and interfacing with kids in Cure shirts and other shirts, and I was wearing Metallica and Ministry, but also Jimi Hendrix, whatever. But like I'd be in like the halls of my high school.
Robert Smith, huge Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd fan. Okay.
I'd be listening to like Dark Side of the Moon in my headphones before algebra class, tripping on LSD, and I think about how I would like to have been listening to this album also at that time. Yeah, absolutely. Because I put it on this morning on my way to the gym because I knew we were going to talk about this today. I've been listening to it recently a couple other times when I was traveling a little bit. It's a weird place in my life to like go into an exchange with this record as a 41-year-old man who's also kind of, a highly accomplished musician that like has and just has a really sensitive ear for a lot of things. So and too much so, because I was trying to listen to it this morning, and I was thinking I'm just gonna follow the words, because most people listen to music and that's all they listen to is the words, and that's why people pop music is what it is. It's like the words are the first thing they hear. But I'm sitting there like, oh, the drum arrangement, or, you know, like, oh, how's the bass mixed on this? That's a very interesting use of synthesizers. Oh, I like, you know, wow, that's a really like interesting structure to that melodic line, and how, you know, and here comes these harmonies, and that's so weird. What are they doing? You know, I'm like, there's this like interrogation I'm doing in terms of arrangement, which is fascinating about this album, and I'll listen to it a lot more moving forward with the rest of my life. I'm excited about it because I noticed my first impressions on deep listening to this in the last few weeks were there's this sort of elementary quality to the riffage that like a teenager would come up with. Is the first thing you'd come up with on a guitar. A lot of like there's a lot of this brilliant. No, and that's not me speaking in a pejorative sense about it. It's more like there's a primal thing about it. At first, that's what I noticed. I'm like, wow, these riffs are just like, he's got an open string and he's just moving one finger around up and down the scale.
Talking about the bass.
You know? Okay, so yeah, the bass does that sometimes too. Sometimes it's played with a pick. The bass sounds different. Every song actually sounds different on this album, which is what's brilliant about it. Yet it's a cohesive whole. It's a complete sonic world.
So funny you were talking about sometimes it's so low in the mix.
Yeah, sometimes you can't hear it. Yeah. So there's songs where it's like really high and trebly and like picked, and like it's like the main thing. Then there's songs where it's like really muffled and just like this like substrate of like root notes. Then there's stuff where there's like a synthesizer playing the bass, and the bass is kind of dealing in the mid range, working off of the guitars in this kind of like weird. Close down. Yeah, this kind
of. One of my favorites. By the way, the Album Club, if any of y'all listen to that, they talk about the Close Down as being like a throwaway song. It's one of my favorites. So anyway.
There's no throwaway songs on the record. Plain song, not so plain. Let me just tell you.
Oh, yeah,
why is that called a plain song?
Oh my God.
That ain't no plain song. I think it's interesting. Really, the first song on the album where there's like a conventional drum set sound is the hit song that we all heard on the radio, which was Love Song.
Oh, Love Song.
And that you were talking about the video, right? Like, 'cause that's the first one where there's actually like a snare and hi-hat and kick, like sounds like a drum, and then there's a little guitar solo. Like that's
very
like a
60s. And you know what's interesting about this album too is I feel like all of the hits, you know, the releases off the album are amazing, obviously, but when you get into the album, I feel like they're the weaker songs. That's just me.
I agree. No, I'd agree with that. And we've heard them so much. And to me, I remember that song really liking it.
Pictures of You is perfection.
I really liked it as a kid, that song a lot. But it kind of just fell into this kind of when I met you and you were like, oh, I really like The Cure. I was like, yeah, I'm not so into like Brit pop kind of stuff. That's what I said, something like that. Because I'm more into like Frank Zappa and like Mahavishnu Orchestra. Basically music that sucks. And, but sure is fast and, you know, and tight and isn't that impressive, you know. But that's not to say that I wasn't also like a big Floyd fan and really liked music with a lot of deep emotional content. And anyway, they kind of blended into me with Tears for Fears at the time because Love Song was on MTV at the same time as Sowing the Seeds of Love.
So weird about what you just said. You didn't even know this, but as I mentioned, I had $20.
Yeah.
And I went to the record store.
Oh, damn.
And one of the albums I got was Tears for Fears, songs, Big Chair or whatever. And the other one was The Cure.
They were on MTV at the same time. They were like back to back constantly.
Yeah.
That was like, and there was a similar look. You know, there was this.
Not really.
Yeah, I thought they had they had big hair and this kind of like, you know, like sort of effeminate kind of thing going on, and I don't know. I like both of those songs a lot.
Trained metalhead eye, perhaps.
I liked both of them. I wasn't really metalhead at that time. I was like in middle school. It was pre-metalhead. Right. I mean, I was an Iron Maiden fan, but not like. Yeah, that's it. What a great album. Total masterpiece.
Continue your point about. But what were you saying about the bass?
This is an album that's not afraid to drop some bass on your ass though too, like in a big way. The bass is like a big saturation like factor. There's a lot of moments where I'm just like that's what I was saying. It's like a hug. It's like an embrace when that bass drops. And I will, you know, it's like this magnificent sort of like I feel cocooned or cushioned in this loving kind of way, and the whole album just feels like pure bliss to me. And I can, you know, I was trying to analyze it too because I knew I was going to be talking about it. So I was like, well, let's talk about how The Cure is like can get away with using chimes in a way that is not, totally cheesy. It works for them. Let's talk about how Robert Smith can appropriate Spider-Man after it's already been like a cultural icon for 50 years at the time, right? And just retool it, like just the coinage Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And you don't really think of the Amazing Spider-Man when he's talking about like Spider-Man gonna eat your forest dinner tonight. You know, it's like, I mean, it's like kind of a scary, weird song, lullaby. And a lot of the song titles are almost like descriptions of the song. Plain song, love song, lullaby, untitled. Like there's these kind of.
Where's for rain?
But just like descriptive of song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This type of song. So I was going to say this also. So because we're able to do this right now because our daughter is in a school situation now, a couple days a week. So, and I was taking her to that school situation after my gym situation of listening to the whole album. And then I put it on again as we were driving to school this morning, and the chimes at the beginning. And as soon as Plain Song kicked in, she goes, I love this. It's like magic. And she's 4, you know? And I was like, oh, that's great, you know?
That's right. That's how I felt, too.
Yeah, totally.
It's a universal feeling that I think we can all relate to as Cure fans. You know, it was his... Well, he went about making this album to make a masterpiece. This is going to be his masterpiece. It's a great success and success. He did it. Good job, Bob.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
good job, Bob.
We could go on, but I guess we shouldn't.
Yeah. So
and be respectful.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add?
I just think it's great though, like it's hard for me to like get into things, you know, as you get older. It's harder to, like, if you weren't into it when you were younger, it's like sometimes harder to like to access it unless it's like a genre thing. Like I already like jazz, so I can listen to a new jazz album, but to listen to like this, like get into a band or something, I kind of find it difficult to like, but I feel like this has actually been quite therapeutic for me and healing to go forward, because I always wanted to be friends with the Cure fan kids. I just felt like this sort of alienation and kind of like inability to like, well, I guess it would be a fear of intimacy was what my therapist described it as at one point. But anyway, so my embracing of like the Cure, this album, it sort of feels like a renegotiation. It brings me a lot of joy and happiness at this point in my life. So 30 years later, I'm glad you can kind of, and that's the beauty of music. Those navigating the imaginal realms transcends time and space. It's a fucking wormhole to healing. Go back, play that music for your teenage self, take that LSD, go to school, hang out with those kids. It's
never too late. Never. And on that note, I guess we'll close down. Get it?
Oh, damn.
But we are Shane and Courtney, and we have a podcast about Echo and the Bunnymen. Coincidentally, we live in the same town as the guys who do this podcast.
The Holy Hour.
Pretty amazing. So,
pretty wild.
Again, it's really an honor.
Thank you for having us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Shane and Courtney. That was awesome. And yeah, man, we should have just given you a whole hour. So we hope to have you back again. And I would love to talk some Echo and the Bunnymen with you guys sometime and return the favor. But just a little taste for people out there in the Cure world of what you are in store for when you check out Is There an Echo in Here podcast on iTunes. You won't be sorry. Go find those episodes immediately. And now we're going to shift gears a bit. And I'm going to call up my ring-a-ding crew, Donald and Chaz. And we're going to hash it out a bit more. So sorry for a bit of redundancy. A couple topics overlap from what Courtney and Shane talked about. But we're going to leave them in there. See if you can spot them. Let's rewind again. May 2, 1989.
You guys might have covered this last episode, the time you did before, but when was the first time you listened to the album all the way through?
Yeah. First listen, going back all those 30 years ago, it was on the release date. This was the first one I got on the day that it came out, because I got into them like 88. I guess it was like the summer, maybe even late 87, but like Kiss Me had already been out and kind of, was doing maybe like the last single I got at the store, but I was still like 5th grade at that point. So going into 6th grade, anticipating this one, and I was seeing like ads for it and stuff. So I was already like a diehard fan, as much as like a 6th grade kid could be a diehard fan of anything, I guess. But so yeah, really anticipating it. And this was the one that my mom took me to the mall, when I bought it. I sat in the clothes shop while she clothes shopped, and I just read all the liner notes from the cassette and went home, then listened to it all, and was just pretty blown away. I remember the exact first listen, like kind of just going, wow, this is kind of a dark album, because I was kind of anticipating the poppier stuff too, but like, yeah. So like the first plain song, I was like, I like it, but it's like I can't hear his vocals. I remember like being worried that all of it was gonna be really mumbly like that, and then Pictures of You kind of snapped me out of it quick, but yeah, I loved it pretty initially from the bat, but I knew it was gonna be like a different Cure journey already, because it was like, because with the dark stuff at that point, I liked it, but I wasn't like crazy about it. I was still pop Cure all the way.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, and
like all their darker stuff.
Yeah, but that's when I met Donald. Was in that 6th grade class too, and we hit it off like pretty early in that year, I think, and just started hanging out a lot and sharing music, and I gradually was sharing him music, and he came around. I think by the end of that year, like, we had started like definitely swapping a lot of tapes and stuff, and we had narrowed it down in that first episode of the Holy Hour that was like, what the hell did I copy for Donald? And then when we narrowed it down, it was like, oh yeah, it wasn't a mix. Everything else was mixes, but this was like the first one where I was just like, here's the new Cure album. You gotta listen to this. And I think that gradually won you over, maybe. Hard to say.
It did. I was already won over.
Yeah.
Because that was a bleak time. 89 or 88.
Yeah, it was the 88-89 school year. So crazy.
Because I was all Janet back then.
Yeah, you're full.
So this Disintegration really blew my mind.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I still have that copy somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
In a box.
But
yeah, that was my first. Was just like Gavin's influence. Like, check this out. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it
was just being kind of heavy, and I did flock to like the poppy ones.
Yeah.
Because like kind of the heavy ones, there was a lot.
Yeah, it was so weird, and I mean, I think that is
a lot to take in.
Huge testament to that album is that the singles really do just kind of flow with everything. So you do kind of just take the whole album, even though I knew there were singles. I knew Fascination Street already because that was the first single in the U.S. And
right.
So I had the little single of that I'd gotten in advance. But so that was the only one, though, going into it that I'd already heard. So it's pretty crazy. so lots of sentimental value. Yeah, where were you at with that?
So you guys heard that in '89. I was 8 years old, so
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't even in the picture at that point.
I was watching Teletubbies.
Yeah, pretty much. Accounting class in 1998 when Veronica Penzak gave me the CD to listen to. So yeah. So we ended up dating about 6 months later, but
how do you not date a chick that's like, have you heard this record? I dated Gavin for like 3 months in the 6th grade when he gave me a mixtape.
We
were copy.
Yeah, we were I forget, the teacher was out that day or was going to be out for a while, so it kind of was like a glorified study hall. Yeah. And we both said we were going to bring in music for us to listen to, and I gave her some CDs, and then she gave me some of the CDs that she was listening to at the time, and this was right in there. Awesome. And so I just put it in and listened to it all through class. And
that was the first Cure at all? Or
no, that was that was the first. I'd heard other hits like Boys Don't Cry and Just Like Heaven and stuff like that, but I never really dove into them. I was more into hardcore and punk at that time.
Right.
So it wasn't really on the radar.
She's trying to chill the Chaz out.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, and then the first time...
She's just like rubbing your back, like, calm down.
Yeah.
Dude, it's okay.
And I remember her and I going to the Double Decker Records in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Cool.
And like the first time we went up there together, I found a bunch of Cure records that were sitting there, and I bought them all, and that's where it basically started with buying way too many Cure records. And collecting them, so
been buying all of them ever since.
Yeah, pretty much. So
you have your 30th identical copy of Disintegration
I don't
on
have
vinyl.
30. Well, no, I don't have 30 yet. But I mean, if you count the different CDs and cassettes and records, it's pretty damn close.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you remember your initial reaction then? Was it love at first hear or?
I did not like Plain Song.
Yeah.
At first hear, like I was like, what the fuck is this? Like it wasn't for me. And then like as the album went on, it seemed to get. I mean, it definitely got harder. You know, you go into Last Dance and Lullaby and Fascination Street, something that I could really get into. So I just remember loving like the meat of that album.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was the original. I was like Skip, and then Good in Pictures of You, which is kind of like yeah. So kind of hit a home run with that one, and then moved all the way down. So
it's funny, like the hardcore guys like this washy weird thing I don't like, but this really pretty long pop song.
Yeah, I'm into it.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Plain Song was just strange. Like going back to what I was saying too with it, because I love like the strings and everything was very like One More Time, Kiss Me kind of over dramatic that I loved. But then like that mumbly vocals, and I remember even as a kid like thinking how great the lyrics were because I'd read them in advance and everything, and I was just like, but you can't hear them, man. What the hell? I remember being so bothered by that. I was just like, you can't just turn off the lyrics, man. But so then of course
I think
it makes sense.
that's something that's bothered me about that song, even though I think it's amazing now. That still bothers me. I remember listening to it at work like 2 nights ago, and I was just like, man, I really wish I knew who he was saying right now, because I don't have the lyrics memorized. Yeah. So I was just like, I can pick some stuff out here and there and stuff that I know off the top of my head, but I don't have the lyrics in front of me, so I don't really know what's going on. So unlike the rest of the album, which I can pretty much quote.
Sometimes it's good not to know what's going on,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I like about it. Like I could give two shits about lyrics anyways. It's like as long as the cadence is good and it's a nice melody, or it's pretty, or it's scary. Yeah. Like as long as the point is conveyed, like that's all I'm happy with. And that's what I think with that song. Like its point is conveyed in that you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a scary feeling.
It's definitely a dark contrast to the rest of the album. Just how. It's got to be the most beautiful Cure song written. Like if you add everything all together,
right?
And I know I've said this before, but when I saw them at Madison Square Garden, that was the first time I'd ever heard that song live, and it just absolutely, it took over the entire arena. It was just amazing. It was. I don't know.
It just fills it up so quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
so suck the air out, right?
Right.
Very quickly.
It really does. Yeah, like, because it is confusing. Because it's disorienting. Like, just the all the sounds in the song, and then the lyrics are all tripped out and delayed and mumbly, and like it forces everyone to pay attention.
Yeah.
Because it's not so well drawn out,
Yeah.
Or picture perfect or whatever.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that sentimental value for this album, I mean, looking at, and that's kind of what we're looking at too a lot, is just how this album has held up or changed or not changed over 30 years of celebrating its history. And I think just the sentimental value we've touched on a lot in other albums, and Donald's kind of gone on the record of saying that, Wish in particular, you saying maybe the sentimental value kind of outweighs more than the quality of the record at times even, and it's tough to really size that up with anything in your life that you really loved growing up with, or anything from high school or something. You have a fond memory of this album, and it's well, is it really as great as you thought it was, or is it just because you associate it with so many cool things, or maybe not even
or
cool
does it
things,
even matter?
So who knows?
You know what I mean?
And like this album in particular is just strange because I think it's so many people's like first like love of The Cure and like maybe first hearing of The Cure, or you know, like first like really appreciations of an album even. So I mean it's
like a big heavy album too.
Yeah, so you do kind of
like people
wonder.
our age, you know.
It's like, is that what really
like,
makes this album so great? You know, it's because it was like,
it was my first heavy record.
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't all just about this or that, you know. But I mean, I don't know. It's a weird question because there's so many people at different points in their lives. So I think it's safe to say that it can't be all that. But you just wonder. I mean, I think it's none of that. I think it's just such a great album, and it just happened to fall in that time period for a lot of people. You know, I think of course you have sentimental value and attachments to it, but I don't know. I think it's strange because the whole like how many things and over that 30 years how many things I've associated this with, and it hasn't ruined or changed my opinion of the album at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I've put it on after every horrible event in my life, and I've put it on at great events in my life, and I somehow still never attach it to any of those things. You know, I think back and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a bad breakup when I cried to Disintegration 15 times in a row, you know, but still I never think of that event as being part of Disintegration's history in my head. It's more of like Disintegration was just there with me, you know. As cheesy as that sounds, maybe, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it to any of that or not too much?
I think that if somebody comes to you and says why you're into The Cure and like they wanted to hear The Cure, I would give them this album above any other, not just because it's their best album, but I think it encompasses their 40-year career in one album. And I think I don't think it's like aged at all. Like I mean, I think it's just kind of timeless in a way that, you know, you listen to heavy synth music now from like the 80s and it's like a lot of the times it's terrible. Like it didn't age very well, but like this album is so fucking heavy, you know, with the synths and everything, and it just adds more to it. And I think I know every time I listen to it I pick something up different each time. And I was listening to it today and I just realized the first time ever that there were that Robert, I forget what song it was, I have it written down somewhere, but he's doing his own backing vocals where he's just kind of whispering the words. They put it on, you know, they put it behind his regular vocals, so it like kind of echoes. It was the first time I heard it, and I'm just like, wow, that's really smart. And then I listened to Disintegration the other night at work, and it's not the first time I realized it, but it was definitely like it took it to another level. The backing vocals on Disintegration that are really high pitched, and like it just like it takes the song to another level that I don't think other albums can do, especially not by them, but just like overall. And
the detail,
absolutely. There's so much fucking detail in this album,
and it's weird.
Like I don't know how they did it.
Just like that back. I know what you're saying with like that backing track of like a harmony echoed out, like just a little like in the back, like once you realize it's like holy shit, like how much more is there? And there's a lot more little
so many doors.
Like that, man.
It's strange in the sense too because it's not new for them even at that point. I mean, they are so good at the layering and. You know, like
doing that shit.
I mean, Kiss Me wasn't like a simple album, even. You know what I mean? As far as like not doing this, but this still works so much better. And you know, and then later albums they produce the shit out of everything. You know, and and it's cool to hear the little weird harmonies that do stand out occasionally when you don't hear it and stuff. But it is a weird thing with this album, like you're saying. It just there's always something new, always something different, and then. So many little details, but they're all great too. Like it always there's like I've said it on the other episodes where it's just like there's literally, in my opinion, no wasted note on this whole album. You know, other stuff will have cool shit, but it's like if you take it out, it's not like whatever. But I mean, everything's kind of necessary and everything works perfectly. Nothing stands out in a weird way. So
like I think it's almost like just, you know, just with like the production of the record and like the playing and stuff and like the recording and the mixing, it's like a masterclass. Like they weren't joking when they put that record out like on fucking cassette and they're like, play it loud. It says that in the liner notes. Like they're fucking not joking, man. Like turn that fucker up and like it sounds amazing. Like that's why like 30 years down the road, it's like this fucking record is still important. It sounds it was that well done, like top to bottom, you know? Not many records like that.
There's something amazing with. I've listened to this record on my computer and a tape deck on a CD player. But seriously, putting my headphones in and turning it up as loud as it can go and just playing it, it's just like a wall of sound each time. And it's just I don't like that's how I pick up on all these little different things every single time. Either there's something from Roger or something from Simon, like a different bass thing that I didn't hear before, and just the layering over and over again. That I think the only way that you can listen to this record properly is to turn it up as loud as you can get it. So
I like to like blast it on speakers real loud. Because it's just like it's made in such a way. It's just so well done. Where it's just like it fills up a fucking room so well. Where it's like the whole room is humming with like harmonies and like low tones, like high tones, and like the depths on the toms when like Boris does like a do 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 like. I don't know. It's fucking classic, man.
And I mean, in touching on that point too, of both the production and it being timeless and it not sounding weird. It's like that idea of thinking of like, technically 80s, but even if you give it that grace period of like, well, early 90s definitely had a weird sound too. And I think a huge testament it is.
Shania Twain years.
And, we'll go into a quick list of some shit that was going on around the same time. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's an equally great, and I always go back to Dave Allen or David Allen, whatever, call the guy that was co-producing all these great albums with Robert Smith. But like, it doesn't sound, I mean, I think it's the production that doesn't, because like you're saying, a lot of good 80s albums, the songs are great, but they just sound like 80s shit, and it's cool if it comes back around and it's more retro or whatever, but it's like, you put on like a Yaz album, I love it, but nobody's going to think that came out like this year, or, you know what I mean? It sounds dated, even like The Walk or something, it's like, it sounds like it's definitely 80s, which is cool, but at the same time, it sounds 80s.
It's not a derogatory thing. It sounds like everything sounds like when it was made.
Yeah, and it can be intentional shit, too. But at the same time, it's so weird because this didn't sound like the 80s in the 80s, and it still doesn't sound like anything that you could put your thumb on now. I think, I feel like you could play this to somebody that's never heard it, and they wouldn't be able to tell what the fuck.
Like lenses?
Yeah, I mean, like when the hell this came out or what. I mean, because usually it is the tip-off is the production of like, that's totally 90s rock kind of thing, even if it's, not saying it's good or bad, but the production is usually what tips people off to the era that it came out in, it's not even the songs so much, but
didn't they spend like 8 months they spent forever fucking making this record, right?
Not by like some of their other crazy standards. I think it was
November. No, this is like November 88 to February 89. It was
that's
so
not
3
really
months.
Jesus Christ.
And they demoed a lot of it, but I mean, it was all pretty casual. That's really wild. He got married before it and stuff, it's just like, okay, cool.
Like, listen, just thinking of it, like I just picture them like, all right, we need to do that reverb vocal track, like, and just all these little like, we need to work on the synth backtrack on the thing, and like it was just like took forever, but no, that's wild.
And even like quick. Remember we discovered, I think it was from that Never Enough book where they said Dave Allen like sampled the kick drum from, and he used it on every. So I mean that's some labor intensive shit, but like he used the same kick drum hit. This was like pre-computer stuff too, I guess. So it's like I don't know.
Triggers and
shit. It's like good lord, but I mean, and that could be, we kind of narrowed it down to maybe that's what gave it such a cohesive sound for, this whole album and stuff. Not that specifically, but that kind of thing and that approach. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like they slaved over it, nearly as long as like Wild Mood Swings or anything like that.
I know.
So it's pretty crazy.
Probably a good thing. Look what they did. With all that time.
Yeah, actually. That was one of the points that hit me today too, was like for how it is strange because it is so layered and intricate and not so many little details. But I was really listening to the deluxe edition demos and stuff. And it's funny with the demos how like true to the songs they are, really.
Yeah.
They just sound, you know, I mean, all the parts are pretty much there on each demo. Maybe there'll be like a harmony that's like they cut, you know, from the actual thing or something, or one little guitar part that's a little goofier that they flattened out by the time they did it. But for the most part, like everything was pretty much how they demoed it, and wasn't that shocking, almost to the point where you're like, yeah, it just sounds kind of like a crappier version of the real one, you know? And it's like, I think it just proves that they were such a band in their stride at that point too, you know, and they just had their shit so clicked, you know, and like they were tight. They knew what they were doing going into the studio. So
yeah, they're just like pros at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
they've been pros for a long time.
but
being a pro for fucking ever, this is what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear with that lineup and everything of how they were just all clicking so good after Head on the Door.
This is what
up.
gets into that rock and roll. Hall
Yeah,
of
this is that Hall of Fame material right here. But,
everybody was on the ball. Like, I mean, there was no.
Yeah.
Almost
I mean,
everyone.
Even Lowell with those other instruments was on the ball.
Lowell was on the ball. Lowell was on the ball and boozed out. Like he's.
Yeah, well, I mean,
like,
maybe
I'm out.
he was doing his part by not fucking being around.
Yeah.
So
I remember. I was looking over a bunch of stories about the album the past couple days, and one that really struck me was Homesick. How they were. It was Simon and Roger were just. They were eating dinner and they were drunk and they came back to the studio and just fucking banged it out. Like they just came back and wrote the song. It's like just those two guys and just like what the that's such a great song.
Yeah,
it's like
real name, but really good song.
I don't understand how that works.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and
you have to be on top of your game to do that kind of shit. Like the whole album.
That's your off the cuff game.
Yeah. Seriously,
like, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. But I mean,
brilliant.
Going back to what you said about the deluxe edition, I love listening to those demos, just because you know you don't really see how the sausage is made all the time, and a lot of times you don't want to, but like that is definitely one of the times where it was just like you really see where they're going with everything, and you know, you see the structure of how everything was built, and it's pretty fucking amazing. So, and like a lot of the time, like with deluxe albums, or where you hear demos, you just kind of skip over them, or you know, it seem like kind of a waste of time. But I think with this album, every song is a great listen, even the stuff they didn't use.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I forget, like, because then there was like another round that was like the internet only versions too they put out, and like and I kind of mix them all together at this point with whatever I have them on. But there's just like a lot of them where, like I was saying, where there's like a version of Love Song where he's got like the high harmony, which is in there normally, but it's buried, but it's like super loud on the demo. It just sounds really weird, you know, and it's just like, you could tell, like, just, it's really cool because they really are kind of mixing it as they go, and like, yeah, that's a little weird, but let's pull that down, you know, and stuff like that. Just slight touches, but makes the world of difference, you know. It almost completely changed the song. There's some good music in 1989, actually. I made like 2 columns of ones just that I thought it'd be funny to because there's some albums that I still love that came out in 89 too, and then some.
Janet.
Well. Not so much in that column, but I guess showing what the pop world was like around that time. It was like Janet, Madonna, Like a Prayer, Prince, Batman soundtrack, which has come up quite a bit on this show somehow. But Debbie Gibson, Electric Youth, Billy Joel, Stormfront, which had the hit song "We Did Not Start the Fire."
Yeah.
Which
I love the lyrics on that one.
Yeah, it's like a history lesson almost.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
I learned so much.
The Cola Wars. I like that part where he's like the Cola Wars. I can't take it.
I mean,
it's like,
what else are you finding?
It's like, was that like a big deal, really? I mean, like fucking Coke.
Wait,
versus,
who let the dogs out? Or who started the fire?
like,
I don't
the
know.
Cola Wars. It's like I fought with your father in the Cola Wars. It was Tone Loc, Cher had her big turn back turn.
Oh god!
Was in that.
But that outfit on the fucking
yeah,
Seacraft
with the
carrier.
Sailor Boys and everything. But some great albums too. Pixies, Doolittle.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Jesus and Mary Chain, Automatic. New Order, Technique, which I always think is kind of the last great New Order album, but that's a whole other debate. Beastie Boys.
I remember all these records so fondly. Like,
yeah,
I remember like hearing them with oh god, there's like so many jams.
Yeah. Although I totally didn't catch it in 1989, but Nirvana, Bleach.
Yeah, Nirvana, Bleach. Yeah, well, that was 89 or 88? 89.
Something said 89, but
okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong on that one. But yeah.
Soundgarden, Louder Than Love.
Yeah. Replacements, Don't Tell a Soul, which a lot of people don't love that album, but that was the one that actually got me into the Replacements, so that was a cool album.
There's a couple good songs on that.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that.
Making the B talent show. Tom Petty, who, it is what it is, but Full Moon Fever is a pretty good album.
Oh, that record's so good.
Yeah, you can't deny that
as
one.
As far as like big Tom Petty's dope.
Yeah.
That record's dope.
9 Inch Nails, Pretty Hate Machine came out then. So those are just a few.
Paul's Boutique.
Yeah.
Beastie Boys. Yeah.
I listened the fuck out of that. That record fucked me up.
And
that was a good year for records.
Which is it's pretty diverse, I mean, like thinking of like how does Disintegration fit into that? It's like, well,
nicely.
How the fuck does
what a diverse.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Jesus and Mary Chain doesn't really even sound anything like Tone Loc or Tom Petty. So there's a lot going on. I wonder which ones of these Robert liked. What was he listening to when he was taking a break from Disintegration? It was like probably went out, put on a little.
Love Shack came out in 1989.
Was that 89? Yeah. That was my first
Fucking
concert. Was B-52's Cosmic Thing. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, like you like listed all those bands. How many would you say are like could be relevant today? Like not a whole lot of them. It's like, I mean, if you played them for somebody, like if you played them for like a 16-year-old, would they be like this shit is like whack, or would they be like, what is this? They show any interest in it?
Yeah.
I mean,
hard to say.
I'd just turn it off and be like, if they're like, this is whack, I'm like, you're fucking dumb.
It's like, we didn't
That's
start
like,
the fire, man.
You don't deserve to know.
That's not how you reach out to the youth, Donald.
Yeah.
Well, you're dumb. Okay.
You're dumb.
All right, Grandpa.
Yeah.
Get off my cassette deck.
I have the top 10 grossing films in 1989.
Oh, what do we got in the movies? Yeah.
Number 1 was Batman.
Yeah.
Tim Burton.
Based off, of course.
That's relevant to today.
The Summer of Batman.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Hell yeah.
Lethal Weapon 2.
That was a good one.
Look Who's Talking. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
Back to the Future 2.
Nice.
Ghostbusters 2.
Nice.
Drive You Miss Daisy.
Ooh.
2.
Yeah, 2. Parenthood and Dead Poet Society.
Nice.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid lineup. Those
Yeah.
are good. Yeah, it's a good year for the arts.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But.
So going back to the Care's approach to this thing, I guess it's hard to not compare it to at least Pornography, because of the trilogy stuff. Like when you think about, it's obvious that that's what they're going for again, but like in a whole different way. But I don't know. I mean, just the way that those two albums, I guess, obviously Pornography holds up still too over even greater amount of years, but it's like it's kind of its own whole deal. How do you guys feel about the comparisons, and do you think that this took a specific route? I mean, I guess the question would be like, we came to the kind of conclusion that it's a more mature Pornography in a sense.
Yeah.
But do you feel that way?
Yeah, I can see that. He did drop some of the lyrics from Cold into one of the songs.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see the comparison. I don't see the comparison with Blood Flowers for the trilogy.
Yeah.
But,
Hell no.
It's definitely more mature. There's more people in the band, and they've come a long way from those days, like writing music and production value wise.
Yeah.
But I definitely would, especially lyrically, how dark that was compared to this one.
Yeah.
Just a feeling of hopelessness.
Yeah.
That I think's pretty much present in every song, if you break it down. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I would definitely say yeah, and I'm hoping the
Yeah.
new album, from what Robert said, is on the same level as that.
Yeah, he's saying
So,
dark and intense, and the
Yeah.
Cure fans will love it. Other people won't. It seems to fit the pattern for, I just didn't even realize till like jotting down the notes for this. I was like, oh wait, he's about to turn 60.
Yeah.
And that's what this was all about, was that he was turning 30. And even Blood Flowers, he was turning 40, and even 413 Dream, even though that doesn't come anywhere into it, he was about to turn 50. But I mean, at least it just shows, if nothing else, that he gets productive. And we know that it's a big deal for him when he goes into a new decade age bracket. So
Did you do the math breakdown yet, Chaz?
No.
You still have all the chalkboard and the yarn and thumbtacks.
I am ready
tied
for
it all together.
I am ready for Blood Flowers Part 2, but
I think So I mean, his idea of dark and intense, it could just be a 60-year-old version of Blood Flowers. Who knows? But at this point, I would take, though. I think it's almost probably better if he does just kind of embrace that more than trying to do like poppy Cure that isn't catchy or something, So I mean, why not? I think that's where the Cure bread and butter is, if you will. So
going back to something you said, Chaz, about the comparison between like Pornography and Disintegration, was just like the amount of members.
Yeah.
When
you're trying to make a wall like that, a sound, and you have just a couple people, like you kind of have to go pretty hard just to like get that effect.
Yeah.
But having so many people, I think, is really key to Disintegration. Just like all the detail, and that wall of sound,
and that the wall of sound can even be comforting in a sense, because it's weird. I mean, there's definitely some hard and aggressive shit on Disintegration, but for the most part, it's a wall of sound that's very like soft in a way too, which is kind of weird for an album. Yeah, where it's like a big soft hug, or something that's just like swallows you more than like hits you, like with like a normal wall of sound would just be like, whoa, what the hell?
It's like they're going for the same effect.
But it's like a soft shoegaze album.
I would say Pornography is more like a sledgehammer, and this is more of like you're being slowly drowned. Like that's but like honestly, like put it in some context. Disintegration and Pornography are only technically like 6 years apart. Like we're thinking like 30 years later, but that's
that's fucking crazy.
Isn't that insane? Like they started recording this in 89 or 88, and Pornography came out
like fresh
in
off the heels.
It's like some bands don't even put an album out like 6 years. Like my youngest kid's 6 years old, and like it's just like I don't understand how you can go from, like, it just blows my mind thinking about that.
And even just how much the band did and changed so many times in between that, knowing their history, even, it's like in between, 82 to Disintegration by that point, it does feel like they've come so far and matured so much in that 6 years even, but it's like probably hadn't really. I mean, he's like 6 years older. How much wiser could he be, really? I mean, it's like, geesh.
I mean, he was still,
and to put it into
dealing with
perspective, like
substance abuses and everything during that time, but during both times. So I mean, not a lot.
That's how I kind of feel like.
So.
I always say, like, lyrically, like you were saying, definitely more mature in that sense, but like the thing that I love about Disintegration is that it feels like real problems in a bit, like I feel like it's, like
grown up stuff.
Yeah, and it sounds like I'm belittling the lyrics to Pornography more, but I think it's just, it feels more like that's like younger, like aggression and stuff.
Get over your shit, kid.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know why, but it's just like, and half the time I still don't even know what the fuck he's talking about on Disintegration, but you could tell it's something a little more permanent, and it's like, this is some shit that's gonna stay with him for life. He's not just pissed off and going on something, and I feel like in that respects, it definitely feels like he's like changed a lot,
Wasn't he like 30 when he
like about to turn 30?
Like 30 when he made
Disintegration.
Yeah, he's in his 30s or some shit.
Yeah, he's 29, turning 30. He's acting like it's the end of the world. Like,
I'm starting to think this motherfucker did the math. Weird.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
I don't like math, but I really like a math-based band. It's weird, and they're not math rock.
No.
Just
or are they?
Deeply.
So maybe we should do a quick run through then for Chaz thoughts on each song.
Absolutely.
Well, like we said, Don and I will probably try not to dwell on any too much, but we were curious of what Chaz felt with the song by song since we missed you on the last round. But I think we covered Plain Song, maybe. Greatest opening song ever, you think?
I think greatest opening live song.
Okay, yeah.
If you're going to put a Cure crowd in the mood, like for specific... I mean, if you're just playing the hits, it definitely wouldn't work. But if you're actually trying to mold some kind of set together, then, I think that's the way to go.
Totally.
I mean,
it's hard to fuck with.
If they actually play the Disintegration set in the United States, like I can't imagine listening to that whole album live from start to finish. It's gonna fuck with my head.
You're all exhausted by the end.
Oh my god, yeah! I'm gonna feel like I need to go home and go to bed for like the next week. This is ridiculous.
Totally.
But I mean, I know I brought this up before that I always thought that Disintegration was a concept album.
Yeah.
And I think the concept is just in the name of the album. With Disintegration, because I believe every song on this album deals with something disintegrating in one way or another.
Right.
So even with Plain Song, it's written from the woman's perspective and how she's reminded of a relationship that's cold and painful. She smiles because she sees the irony in all of it. So her relationship,
Jesus Christ.
her relationship is disintegrating right in front of her. And she realizes it is, and she realizes how much it hurts, but she sees some sort of irony in it, and it just makes her smile. So it's a fucking heavy song. So I know like some people perceive it as some kind of sweet song, but it's not. It's anything but.
Right.
And I think the music kind of gives that deception. So yeah.
It's a great way to kick it off.
Dive right into that fucker. So.
And even with like the metaphor of like the end of the world, I mean, that's just like the world's fucking disintegrating, it's like a
absolutely.
metaphor in the song even, so pretty cool.
I feel uncomfortable right now. That's a lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I read into these lyrics really hard over the past couple of weeks.
Jesus.
Yeah, I've been dealing with a lot lately, so I've been like, this has been my go-to album for the past couple weeks. So, but like, moving on to the next song, "Pictures of You." Sweet song, everybody thinks.
Not so much either.
It's a great love song. Everybody thinks it is, but
but
it's the disintegration of the hopes of somebody you loved and what they used to be, and they're not that way anymore. So it's not somebody looking at photos and remembering the great. It is remembering the great times I had with someone and like continuing on that path, but the path is already gone. Like there's nothing there anymore. So I feel that a lot of people take it one way, but I definitely see it as different.
But it's so great and genius that both these songs right off the bat, but I mean, the whole album really does. I mean, yeah, when you dig in, like these kind of examples where you're just like, God, this is like heavy and not positive, but you could still put it on like when people are around and it feels good, you know, like somehow it's genius the way it cuts through. Like it's not even like the snappiest melody. I mean, that one is, but like it's not like a, you know, super bouncy kind of songs, a lot of them, you know, but it's still
it's sneaky.
It does.
I have it as like the perfect nodding song where you're just like just nodding your head back and forth really slowly. So but like even Just Like Heaven does the same thing, where it's like a really poppy song but it's fucking sad. You know,
there's nothing.
That is.
It's like it's fucking heavy, and like a lot of like my wife and I had that,
and the melody is secretly sad as well.
Yeah, behind it all, but like my wife and I had that as our wedding song, just because it wasn't the lyrics as much as it represented when our relationship took off, just from the kiss me angle. But the lyrics aren't happy at all. So you know. But I think the bass line is great in that, and I think the chimes bring in like this perfect mood to the song, and
that they carry over from plain song is genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's
that's a great carryover. Yeah, and I Roger was fucking on the ball with this whole goddamn album. Like, I like his.
He's the fucking hero.
Oh my god, the whole. I think him and Simon shine the most on this whole entire album. If you're
that's what I was actually kind of thinking of on this listen before this. I was kind of like, I kept having those thoughts like while each song was going. I was like, oh yeah, this song, like Simon's just killing it, and this is like his thing. I'm like, yeah, he's doing great on this whole song. And then Roger because of the synths, and then I'm like, oh, but that drum beat's like Boris, man. That's like the fact that I could like pick out a drum beat, you know, hit for hit on it, you know, and I'm just like, well, I think that's what's great about this album too, is that it showcases everybody, but at the same time, it's a team, you know, it still fits, you know, but it seems like it's like showcasing people with various songs, you know, but it's really just makes
like Boris's drum parts are just as like hype as like Simon's bass riffs.
Yeah,
like, they're that recognizable.
It's crazy that it all meshes together.
They play off of
so
each other so well that I don't think there's another album where those two anyway played off each other as well as they do on this one. So,
like when they're doing that shit when like Boris is just doing like a tom riff the whole time, like where it's just like like, and him and Simon are just synced up. Like, it's so tight. It's amazing.
So Close Down, that has such a good like train melody to it. Where it's just like it's just driving, just the start from it, and then the synth takes over, but then the bass comes back in with Boris drumming. It's just I can't wrap my mind around the art that's just like so heavy on this album. Like I just like I said, each time I just hear a different thing where I'm just like, that's fucking genius. Like, I don't know how you do something like that.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So, every layer's crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is definitely a disintegration topic of like disintegrating the mind and soul. He never sleeps. He's anxious, which I think the sleep angle plays into a lot of the songs in this album.
Yeah.
Lullaby and.
Robert values his sleep.
Yeah, I think at this time he wasn't getting any.
When you're fucking with Robert's sleep,
yeah,
it's not good when you start fucking with Robert's sleep. We saw that with the Top too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like
he's so deep.
I just need to sleep, please.
He just needs a little cat nap.
It is a funny thing, but at the same time, it's like, how do you escape everything that's going on? And the one major way you can do that is just sleep. Yeah, and if you don't if you don't get it, it fucks with your mind. So,
for sure.
You know, I went through a period in time where I honestly couldn't sleep for about a year and a half, and it was one of the worst points in my life. You know, you're forgetting everything, and everything's just coming. You know, everything's mashing together, and you don't know where you are half the time. So
shit doesn't make sense.
It's like I can understand like where he's coming from, just with like a lot of this sleep stuff. So he should have gone for a sleep study like I did, but you know. So love song, sweet song.
Yeah,
gave it to Mary as a wedding gift.
yeah.
You know, it's everybody thinks it's that. Robert is confessing that he's a fucking terrible person. Away from her. And you know, he's made whole when he's with his wife, but when he's away, it's a different type of he's a different type of person, and he has to remind her that no matter what he does when he's away from her, that he still loves her. And I know that in the second, like, I know we listened to it at the Hall of Fame, and we brought it up in the car ride. He changed the lyrics to whatever games I play.
Yeah.
I will always love you.
Instead of whatever words.
Yeah.
Is the normal line.
Yeah. So to me, it's a sweet song. It's got a lot of nice emotional, loving feel to it, but at the same time, I think there's something behind it that's dark and sad. Yeah. So, you know, and I don't think that it bothers me that people don't pick up on it, but at the same time, I get it.
Yeah,
I'm a big believer that
it's like there's no guarantee in this song that this shit's working out. This doesn't sound like it's positive by any means, but
and
it's like we don't even know if she's alive. What is he talking about?
But I you know, I'm a big believer that people only want to see or hear what they want to see or hear. So I think that they see that he gave it to her as a wedding gift. Or whatever, and in that way it's all about how much he loves her, but it's not. Like I sincerely believe that it's not, and I'm sorry if you don't like, if somebody doesn't agree with me, it's cool, but you know, I'm looking at it from a completely different perspective, I guess. So
Robert seems very self-obsessed.
Well,
seems really into himself on this record. It's just like, I'm fucking blown.
Well, the first
disintegrating.
The first song,
like you
listen.
do to yourself, dude.
I'm gonna be 30.
I mean, plain.
Oh no.
I mean, Plain Song was definitely written from a female perspective. So you got to give him that at least.
You get mixed up.
So Last Dance, I think, is the most guitar heavy song on the album.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
I think Pearl and Robert do a great job with it. I think it was definitely their time to shine throughout the album, especially Pearl. If you know, I don't really know who's actually playing what on that album, but definitely give it to them on that song.
It's pretty sick.
And so this is Disintegration about feelings for someone, how it just goes away.
Over time.
So and this is
was this song about Lowell?
Yes. You know what? I made a joke to a couple people that Pictures of You was about Lowell, but no, I mean not this song, but I could see some like a song here or there that actually, you know, it does deal with the loss of a relationship, but it's not particularly saying whether it's a female or male relationship, and I could totally see him writing a song based on his
even if it's subconscious. That's kind of what we came up with the other one, going over like the core ideas, and I mean all that shit's got to be in, you know, his head, you know, to some degree or another, even if he's just making up fictional, you know, catastrophes to write these songs about, you know, even if he was totally happy through all this, that's fine, but you know he's channeling shit, you know, and it's like I'm sure that was some of it, you know, and it's
had to weigh on him. His like best friend for how many years?
Fuck yes.
He's gonna have to kick him out of the one thing that he's known for the past, you know, decade plus. So
like when I get kicked out of the podcast, Gavin's gonna be writing some shit like this. When I get lulled out of, you know.
It's coming.
It's gonna fuck you up. You know?
I'm not saying specifically it's Donald, but
Gavin has his own Roger lined up already.
Yeah.
Shut up, Perry.
It's like you can say like 4 comments at the same time. You just say like one.
But it's kind of fun. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I like the theory that this record is like multiple types of relationships, like just relationships in general disintegrating, and it's like Lowell. Like,
and that's, I mean, we took it to that in the last one
like,
too, with like the idea of like layers of that. Even it's like the disintegration of relationships, disintegration of the band because they're coming off of all the pop celebrity of Kiss Me, the disintegration of what was the other ones? It was just like, you know, his youth. I mean, by turning 30 or whatever, you know what I mean? There's so many. Yeah, it's heavy, man. What's next?
Well, that was the album or the song that he dropped the cold lyrics from Pornography.
Yeah.
Your name is like ice into my heart, but it's very softly in the background.
Yeah.
So you have to turn it up to actually hear that. So I think that was a nice.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
Because it wouldn't seem like that's the most obvious pornography nod on the album. Almost like Closed Down or something's like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like has more of a pornography feel to it. So you wonder.
Yeah, I think that was.
What is the fucking parallel between Cold and that? You know, and just like okay, cool.
So Lullaby's next, and I remember on the first Disintegration episode you guys did. It was it both of you or just one of you that wasn't a fan of the song?
Definitely Donald.
I
don't like it.
Yeah.
You said it doesn't fit.
It just breaks the whole mood.
I don't think it like personally. I don't think it does. It's a song about childhood fears that carry over to adulthood. Because he's been scared of spiders ever since he was a kid, and it's definitely something that you know, with the issue of sleep that he was having, it could have definitely. You know, there definitely could have been issues with nightmares.
He wants to get wrapped up in a web and finally sleep.
Possibly, it could have just been something like this. He's having a reoccurring nightmare of spiders or something like that. Because, I mean, you know, your dreams definitely reflect the anxiety and stuff, especially nightmares, the anxiety that you're going through. And if he feels like he's being wrapped up in a web by fame, by marriage, by whatever, I could totally see him having those types of dreams where there's a parallel between his anxiety and what's actually going on in his life. So I don't think it's as simple as this is something the story that my uncle used to tell me when I was growing up. I think there's definitely a heavier meaning to it.
I think it's so crazy that it does fit to me. I feel like it does. You know. I mean, the fact that it's just some weird ass song about spiders or whatever, you know, I mean, it's just like, whoa. Right. I mean, even lyrically aside, if you take the lyrics out and they don't matter, I feel like it's, and it's kind of like a lot of the songs on this where it's like, it almost doesn't seem like it should fit, you know, but I feel like it still does somehow. And I don't really even know why to this day exactly, but it doesn't really stand out the way it should, you know. But
I like your explanation of the lyrics of Lullaby more than the song.
Thank you. Just replace my explanation with the song.
I'm just gonna
put that over the instrumental.
This song is about. That's what I need lyric wise with like songs. It's just someone like it's just the music and someone like, well, what the song's really about is.
Nice.
So, Fascination Street was the first song that really got me into The Cure. And I know you said that Donald, I think you said you didn't like the song last time on the Disintegration. Did you say you not like it? I don't know. I'd have to go.
He
back
hates
and
all the
listen.
singles somehow. It just except
this song I used to love as a kid, but it's just like
riding around in your trike and stuff. Like
takes me out of it.
Really?
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely one of their heavier songs that they ever wrote.
Yeah.
Right.
Besides the heavy Cure self-titled album. But I think this is definitely one of the hardest.
It's aggressive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Besides the title track, I think this is the one where Simon almost like he fucking nails it on this.
Yeah,
it's
that
so
bass line's
so fucking.
Yeah, it's hard
good.
to fuck with that bass line.
So fucking good. But this was the one that was the hardest for me to pinpoint. the Disintegration topic.
Yeah.
But it took me into reading about what the song was about and why they wrote it. And, they wrote it about going to Bourbon Street in New Orleans. But
right.
I think it's the lost hope of adulthood when you're younger and you're looking for something new. Because I was reading about it, and he was apprehensive about going out just because everything's the fucking same now. You go to every city and you're not going to find anything different. So I think it's
all TGI Fridays.
Pretty much, it's the same old bullshit. Where,
totally.
even though it's New Orleans and it has this flair that it's supposed to have, it's still the same as Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Right.
So you're not going to find anything different. And I think there's a lot.
There's like 5 or 6 basic states that you can exist in. Like drunk, happy, sad, blah.
Yeah.
And New Orleans is just another like woo.
Well, I mean, I think all of us have said or thought that I'm going to this, and it's going to be the most amazing thing, and you go to it, and it's the same fucking thing as the last time you thought about it was going to be great, where it turned into a disappointment, and I think the song a lot of it is just about disappointment. It's nothing's new.
I felt like this was the first kind of nod too. Listening to it today, we're hearing like the distortion with the guitars and the feedback more. It was like kind of like the precursor to like some Wish kind of stuff, like
absolutely,
totally,
stuff,
absolutely, man.
Hadn't really heard any of that, up until this point, I mean, I guess there's some of it, but it's kind of different with Kiss Me Vibe, this kind of feels like it blends into that very gracefully. But Fascination Street, though, you love that song, right?
Yeah, I fucking love that. It's like one of
that's like your gym song.
Oh, absolutely. that gets me.
Like rock,
lifting my weights and
rock climbing walls.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's the one song that gets me up for just about anything. And
nice.
I thought when I saw them in 2016 that I was gonna kind of like lose control, like when they played, but I kept it under wraps.
Kept it together.
So
you turn your hat backwards. You're just
like,
I'm starting to pit.
Let's fucking go. Open this pit up.
Ross Robinson in the house. Oh shit.
But yeah, it's definitely a favorite.
That cracks me up that you love that song so much.
Honestly, if I'm feeling in a down mood and I want to get out of it, I'd probably listen to the song just to get the adrenaline going. I mean, I listen to hardcore all the time, and that's kind of more like that way to do it. But I mean, if I'm still in the Cure mood, definitely go with that song. So
love it.
So where does Prayers for Rain take you after that?
That's definitely like that kind of fucks with your head, going from Fascination Street to Prayers for Rain.
Yeah.
Like I don't like that.
Start aside 2 of the cassette, right? I feel like that's
it's a mid album.
I don't even. It's just like I'm thinking about it now. It's just fucking with my head right now. It's just trying to go from that high to this, like just such a depressing song. It's definitely about an extremely fragile and failing relationship, and you're hoping for relief or rejuvenation, but everything, even the slightest involvement, is just killing you. So, yeah, I hear you laughing, but it's like, it's a fucking heavy song.
It is.
It's just like, even like You Fracture Me, Your Hands on Me. It's just like a touch so plain, so still it kills me. It's just like, you're just like, you don't want to be like, you don't want physical contact. You don't want emotional contact with this person. It's just everything's fucking like the smallest amount of attention or anything is just, it's just driving you further down. So.
And what do you want to do when it's raining? You want to stay inside, and it's such a great excuse to not do anything.
Absolutely, but at the same time, it's
think about anything.
You're still holding on hope for one way or another. Like, just Prayers for Rain. It's like you're in the desert, and the only thing that you want is rain. and
shit.
for some kind of relief. And so he's still holding on some sort of hope, but it's like the relationship is just fucking killing him. And where you could see it, like, this could be a song about Lowell. I mean, if we're going that way, where like he's still in the band when he probably shouldn't be, you know, and you're holding on to this hope that something's going to change and nothing will. You're giving every opportunity. And,
the whole album's about Lowell.
It could be.
Yeah.
So,
because I mean, that's kind of the obvious
my theory to like, god damn, that's tight.
Because I love the obvious running joke of everything is that you know, like, what the fuck? This does not sound like an album written by a guy that just got married. You know, like the whole like he just got fucking married like before recording this album. It's like that would be so weird if your spouse was like, "Here's all my new songs."
Yeah. Like, how do you take that?
What?
Like, it's like of course you don't know the relationship, but at the same time you're just like what the fuck is all this? I mean, is there something going on that we need to talk about?
He's like, okay, I'm ready to spend the rest of my life.
Insecurities about being in a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it could go a billion different ways, but yeah, you would think.
Like one has to be like kind of introspective, look inside, you know, and just think about like what could be wrong, like what is wrong, like how could it go wrong?
Who knows?
You know,
we'll never know.
Like, am I good enough for this person? Like, am I?
Absolutely.
You know.
And as dealing, like, I don't know Robert, but as one of the reasons this album hits me so hard is dealing with, I'm diagnosed bipolar, and so like I've dealt with mental illness most of my whole life. Everything gets turned up to 11. Like when you're dealing with stuff like with insecurities and with you know, you think about stuff that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and like it fucking bothers you, and like you can't get away from it. And you know, that's why this album, like I totally get what he's talking about, like with the lyrics I already laid out, with just the slightest amount of attention from somebody can fucking just fuck up your day, even it's positive or negative. You know, it's just everything's turned up over the top, and it's just something that you got to deal with, and you know, it's just
process it.
Oh, absolutely, and it's hard. Like it's hard to turn off your brain when that stuff's happening. So, I definitely feel a lot of the lyrics in the song, and I know you're not huge on lyrics, Donald, but I
love any insight into them.
I absolutely get it, because there's albums that I listen to that I just want to listen to the music, and I don't really give a fuck about what the person's saying.
Right.
So, you know, but as far as this album goes, it's definitely one of the albums that I dove into lyric-wise as far as they go.
And this is like Robert on fucking top of the mountain at this point. I think anyone, any
absolutely.
level Cure fan would be like, yeah, you can't deny any. I don't know what the hell he was, you know, drinking that day or what, but you know what I mean. It's just like these are great. Like, no matter how you take it, and the fact that you can take it a billion different ways is
maybe
a huge testament to. But
so the next song is "Same Deep Water as You," which is another going from prayers for rain, and "Same Deep Water as You." You're in the fucking depths of despair. There is no light at the end of the tunnel with those two songs back to back. It's I took it as disintegration of your future. You know this is, you know how this is going to end. You can't.
What's the point?
Yeah, you can't be what somebody needs or what they want you to be, and you're destined to fuck it all up anyway. You're destined to hurt. You know, you're destined to hurt that person. So
Jesus.
So both those songs back to back is where I find myself sometimes, and it's not a fun place to be, but it's enjoyable. One way or another.
I love this song so much, but it's
so good. So
it's the one that totally seems to, I feel like, go with the album cover so well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it feels like he's literally floating to the bottom of the lake or whatever. You know what I mean? That's how I always kind of see the album cover as like the you know, like under the water.
It's like some Charlie Brown shit.
Yeah,
like,
he's just going down.
It's
and
like
at this
every
point,
time.
This is like the actual disintegrating, you know, at this point. It's like, but yeah, it's just so beautiful, and the pacing of the song, it's like just so, you know, those notes in between are almost as great, you know, or just everything's so like, sheesh, take your time with that riff, man. But it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, that would be so
That's the best
hard.
part of it, though.
Yeah.
It's what it like ripples in the water.
Yeah.
And Robert went on record saying this is one of favorite songs, or one of the ones that just kind of clicked that you can associate the band with. I have the quote. He said, I'm really proud of what we've done. In my mind, there's a little part of me with Cure songs in it, and it goes with Siamese Twins, Faith, Figurehead, 17 Seconds, and now this new track, The Same Deep Water as You, has gone straight into part of me.
Wow.
Even if the album fails, it doesn't matter. It's been worth it. So I guess
Damn,
just to write the
tight.
song. So
That's
it
what's up.
definitely has a huge connection with him, which is fucking amazing. Like it's. So then we go into the title track, which I think is one of my all-time favorite songs.
Yeah.
This is a song where everybody in the band is on top of it.
Yeah. Great way to snap out of Same Deep Water as You too, like where the album
Music-wise,
fall
but
apart.
not lyrically.
Right. But I mean, like a lot of people, it would have been real easy, just concept-wise or format-wise, for it to just kind of fall apart after that. You know, like where the album would have just been like, blah, and then it ends. But like, there's like this whole like bam back in where you're like, oh
it's
shit.
like sinking to the bottom of the pool, and then getting resuscitated with this very aggressive.
And then you're thrown right back into the pool.
Like you said, concept-wise, not so much, but at the same time, like just the energy of the song and snapping you
It's
out
a good
of it.
flow to a record.
And I think even vocally, I think Robert's on the top of his game. Just the way he delivers the song is so. It's just like a smack in the face. Like each time, you know, just with like, you know, through the roof of your mouth, through the mouth of your eye, just keep going and going and going and going.
It's very Tone Loc-ish.
Absolutely. That's where you got it from.
Yeah, he's like, I'll put a little of that on this record.
Funky Cold Medina.
But yeah, he's rapid fire Robert on this one. He's
Absolutely.
spitting them out.
Dope.
But even in this song, it goes back to the fear of sleep, because he mentions it somewhere, and I had the lyrics and I lost them. But he says, "Holding my breath for fear of sleep again." So there's definitely something going on, and you know, he struggles with age. There's a nod to Pictures again, which goes back to Pictures of You. There's nods to affairs, drugs, fame, and they're all pulling him away and basically killing him. All of them all together. This is what's gonna happen if we have kids. We're just gonna I'm just gonna fucking leave you. Like it's good. It's what's gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen. This is gonna happen, and it goes back to
like no babies.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that's we don't know the relationship, but obviously they both decided not to have kids at some point. You know, so I'm not gonna read into that part of their relationship, but you know, it's definitely. I mean, if you have kids, it's like. It's got to seep into your mind every once in a while, you know. And I know as a father, it's like what would happen if like I wasn't in the picture? And like my father was never around. He was gone like by the time I was 3, and you try to wrap your head around that. Like how the fuck do you leave your kids, you know? And like it's a heavy, like it's just, you know, looking at it from that perspective, the song is heavy as fuck, and it goes with the music too. So, but like. The music, it's just like I just hear different things each time, and it's from the glass breaking to the beginning and the end of the song to the high pitched backing vocals. That
because it feels like it's on such a train track.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
So much still going on, you know, going by. Yeah,
because I always think this song is time is just like the relentless barrage
Yeah.
of like it doesn't stop.
Absolutely.
It's like
Yeah.
and just how like chaotic and frustrating it is, and trying to like keep up with the fucking pace, you know. But it's never ending. It doesn't stop.
And you know how it's gonna end.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it probably is concept-wise, just that idea of like the you know,
did you fucking die?
staring down the tunnel, you know, of like letting your mind run wild with these horrible scenarios that could happen and stuff, you know. And
It's
I think
like,
it's
what am I racing towards?
yeah. So I think there's a lot of that going on for sure. But,
So
it's a great song. That one's grown on me the most over the years too. I think it's just one I always liked, but for some reason that one's one that I always kind of keep coming back to a bit more, even when I'm not in the mood to listen to the whole album. I'll pluck that one out occasionally just to you know.
Stress yourself out.
Yeah, just to feel
Just like,
good, you know.
I haven't felt panicked in
I feel like-
in about 30 years.
I haven't had a good anxiety attack recently. Let's put this on.
It's been at least an hour since I felt like that. But Onward to Homesick.
Yeah.
This piano song.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful piano part.
First time we get really fancy Roger style keys on anything, I think, you know, where you can tell that it's got
He was showcased, like, or he's just like layering shit. This is like
the more two-finger plucking at these parts here, you know,
so pretty.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Then you have the guitar come in, and then the bass and the drums just like all gel together at some point in this. Like, I was listening to it today, and like, I'm just like, yeah, the piano's coming in, and then you're like, oh, here comes the guitar, and then you hear the bass and the drums, and then just all like one point in the song, they just all gel together at one point, and you're just like, yeah, there it is. Like, there's the sweet spot. So I
It's like someone started it and everyone just showed up.
yeah, kind of.
They just like started adding.
Yeah, they all just jumped in like one at a time, and just like at some point they all came together. But it was like
they got back from
seamless.
TGI Fridays and just fucking laid it down.
That was the
man.
song where they just they were out drinking and eating dinner, and they came in the studio at like 2 a.m. and just banged it out, which is amazing.
That's crazy. What a jam.
Yeah, absolutely. So this song is 100% about an affair.
Okay.
on a darker note.
Yeah.
Busted.
All right. Make it worse, Chaz.
Yeah, he even said that Homesick is about an attraction of forbidden fruits. Gavin and I talked about it when he was at my house, and we definitely hit on Robert on the road kind of thing, and infidelities, and you know, I think people have this picture of Robert that doesn't exist. Not that he's
I'm a family man.
Not that he's not a good person, and not that he's not a great musician or artist or anything like that, but he's human, and he fucks up, and he does the wrong thing when he should do the right thing, and we're all there. And I have no doubt in my imagination that the marriage he has isn't perfect, and he, and I think this song basically puts it on a billboard and shows everybody that whether you don't want to take it that way, but it's there, it's right there.
Yeah.
It is what the humanity.
Absolutely. Inspire me in me the desire in me to never go home. I mean, it's it's right there. So yeah.
Here's my wedding present for you.
Yeah.
Go with love song, Robert. Yeah. Pick love song.
Which is isn't that an amazing contrast between those two songs? Like, I honestly think that this is what he's saying sorry for.
Yeah,
no. And
it's the full package.
Absolutely.
And it's all human feelings. Like, it's all
incredibly human album.
It's all normal. Like, when you break it down, it's like, no, that's what people do because people are people.
Yeah. I think this is a very relatable album, and it's such a human.
And you can even take the nice angle of this whole package is the disintegration of the old pre-marriage Robert too.
Oh, absolutely.
He's getting all this out. Like you could say that it's This is him
He's
being
all
done
woke
with
and
his
shit
old
now.
ways, and stuff like
He's
that.
a big boy.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so there's your happy ending, everybody.
I figured it out. It's all shite.
It's the last song about my affairs. So,
Around this one. Hey, sweetheart.
I made you this album.
I made a record for you.
Shout out how horrible I was until the day before we married. Now everything's cool.
We're good,
I
right?
promise.
Are we
Yeah.
cool now?
We're good, right? Because Untitled is such a great peppy song to end it all on too, right? Isn't it?
This is a weird song because the music. I mean, just kind of how you took like pictures of you or just like heaven. The music definitely doesn't match
No.
the lyrics at all, and I love the song so much, but it's definitely a song where I'm just kind of scratching my head to.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely. I think the song's about death. It could be the loss of a relationship, but
How do you round it out?
yeah, I mean they could be the same thing, you know. And I know when my father passed away in 2014, this is definitely a song that kind of haunted me, and it, you know, so not getting too depressing, but you know, I saw him the day before he died in the hospital, and I told him I'd see him later that week. But in the back of my mind, I knew that he was going to die. Like, I don't know why, I just felt like that. And I didn't say what I wanted to, you know, and it's been something I've felt guilt about ever since. So, again, another very relatable song.
That line in particular.
Oh,
is
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
So, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
So, but I think the music kind of makes it a little bit easier to swallow.
Yeah.
So-
There's a weird juxtaposition on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Because, there's some bleak ass lyrics for sure.
Absolutely,
And it just ends and fade, like with them. It's a little less obvious on the recording, but, you know, when they do it live and they all kind of leave the stage one at a time on the song, it's just so perfect, you know, or it's just like it's such like a great disintegrate out the ending, even, you know, like we're slowly one at a
Right.
time, the members just walk off, you know, and it's like. So that's always just that's
Literally
like the perfect,
disintegrating.
the perfect closer. Yeah.
Sheesh.
So
Now-
it's,
now I know we're going to
Pretty
get
amazing.
into it when we go through the revisionist history about B-sides, but
yeah.
I quickly wanted to go over them if that's cool.
But,
Like
yeah.
Babel
Yeah.
I think is a great song. I just can't stand the sampling at the beginning with the
Right.
people crying or whatever, the babies crying or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cool
Yeah.
song. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
That-
it too. But
But even the B-sides, I think deal with Disintegration on the same level that the songs on the album do. I think this
Yeah.
is definitely a disintegration of sanity. I wish I had the lyrics in front of me, but I don't. But and then you have Out of Mind. Is again another song that's issues with sleep. And Fear of Ghosts. The past is haunting, and you can't help each other get over it, like you and whoever you're having a relationship with, and you can't escape from it, and it's fucking up your relationship.
Yeah.
That's how I took it. And then Too Late, I think, is one of the best songs that they've ever
what a
written.
great-
I fucking love that song so much.
It's so good.
It is a gem.
And then the song is just about lost love, but still, it's a disintegration topic. But yeah,
Real unfortunate for Too Late, where I think it's only just that it doesn't fit on the album at all. But
Yeah,
it's
the music
so
doesn't
good.
fit
You
very
know,
well.
it's like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it seems like it could totally be on like Kiss Me or Wish,
Yeah.
you know, or something. But it's just like And I remember reading something where they
That's some
said
Kiss Me shit.
they really wanted to. You know, they were like, "Oh, single right off the bat."
Absolutely.
But then as the album
Yeah.
took like shape, it's like this doesn't
Right.
even fit on the album. You know, so it's pretty sad. Where it's so cool, and even like some of those ones on the bonus thing.
Eston.
There's that Eston one sounds like it would be like a cool B-side to Too Late, almost if they
Absolutely.
just did it as a
Yeah.
single or something, because it has that same kind of vibe. But it's like no way would this fit anywhere
so
on
good.
Disintegration, but yeah, it's really
so
good.
Like just listening to it, I'm just like, I would love to hear what Robert, like if he ever wrote any lyrics to that. Like I would love to hear that song. It's so good.
But yeah, I thought like Too Late was weird too, because it's like I really like some of the lyrics, but it does still always just kind of feel like he kind of knew that he wasn't gonna use it, and he kind of quit the lyrics a little early. Maybe, you know, I feel like they never seemed 100% finished, because he's just kind of still mumble phase for the lyrics. You know, it's like, nah, man, if you had really picked something down on that, it would have been great. And
lyric wise, definitely not as strong as the rest of the album.
It would have been hard to squeeze that in.
Music wise, like Too Late and Eston they're so fucking good. Like I'm just like, I just want to listen to them
those little
over
guitar
and over
parts.
again.
I think like everything I've ever recorded, I indirectly almost like rip off that little down 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 down. Like it's just such a cool little like catchy guitar part, you know. It's like
I just want to go. I just want to go listen to them both back to back now.
Yes. Yeah. The other highlights, I guess, for unofficially released one, just that pirate ship cover. I don't know if that was ever intended to actually be on the album or what. Like a folk song one. It must have been recorded, or wasn't it recorded maybe for that Electra thing that was like the anniversary?
Could have been,
he
but
wanted
it doesn't
to do that, and then they ended up giving them the Doors instead, or something like that. I think there was some story like that, which makes way more sense than him trying to squeeze a cover onto Disintegration.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand why that was.
That would have been the worst.
Yeah,
what's
it's
that?
like this folk C cover of like Wendy Waldman. I bought the record like ages ago of this like folk singer that, you know, just totally not my thing, but you could see why Robert would be into it, you know, whatever. But it's
I mean,
like,
he's British, and it's the kind of has that feel to it. But
yeah, so
I mean, I still dig the song, but it's like it's not like I don't want to listen to it when I'm listening to The Cure kind of thing.
Yeah,
so, I mean, if I'm ever in the mood to listen to folksy like British Irish stuff, which I from time to time I'm there, but. It's
not in the middle of Disintegration.
Yeah, no. So, but I mean, it was an interesting concept that he was going for, because I think it's just solo, isn't it? It's just him.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, just like him with like a little accordion kind of thing going, I think. But.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Have you ever heard that, Donald? No.
I think I have, but I can't think of it.
Yeah.
Like
it's.
Probably not.
It's got that like folksy Irish kind of thing going
acoustic,
on.
Yeah. So do you think overall verdict then it holds up? Like absolutely. It more, a little bit less?
I think it's going to be like a fine wine that just improves with age.
Totally.
So I think that like Colleen, is that the person that did the podcast in South Africa?
Yep.
Yeah, she commented that she saw more and more young kids flocking to Cure shows. And I was surprised when we were at the Hall of Fame how many people were there that were younger than both you and me that were there for the Cure. Yeah. It definitely kind of shocked me, and I think
especially willing to go to something like that.
Oh yeah,
still being a young fan, it's like wow,
absolutely. Right. Like Andy flying from fucking California, and everybody, all his friends. Yeah. That it was just like they're young, and it's just like they're into them, which is amazing. So I think that as time goes on, I think it's going to be one of those albums that that young people still gravitate to and still find some meaning in it, because I think it's such a personal album and relatable album that it's going to have that touch to it. So I think it's an all time great.
Yeah.
It's like when kids get together, like start hanging out and like early teens and like smoking some weed and listening to records for the first time, and it's like, what do you listen to? Fucking Pink Floyd. There's going to be like kids that are like, let's put on fucking Disintegration, man. Let's do it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's going to be a fucking journey for some kids, like 30 years from now, that are like,
yeah. And if you're a parent, and you're listening to this podcast, or you hear about anything, the first time your kid has a massive breakup, you better slide this under their fucking door, and with some other albums, and be like, and just just a note, and just be like, I know how you feel, and like these helped me through those times, you know. So it's your obligation as a parent. So so my wife and I have already talked about that, and we already have like a list of stuff.
Standby copy.
So so we're just like when
good thinking.
Because one of our kids, Jonas, he's a romantic like at heart. Like he just
feels it,
and like his first breakup is gonna be soul crushing. We already know it, and it's so we're just waiting for that day. And I mean, he already listens to The Cure, but I don't think he gets it as much as. I mean, he's only 9.
Right. He's on my level.
Yeah, absolutely. You're on Donald's level.
He's 9. And
poor kid.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting for him when like shit like that kind of clicks. So
if you're 9 and you get Disintegration that much, then there's probably bigger problems.
Yeah. You got some shit going on.
That's why I was like going back to this. I was like, I was 12 when this came out. I was like, I was probably a little too young to be like obsessing over this album. Like, what the fuck, 12-year-olds like listening to this shit?
I wish my parents did stuff like that. Like I've always been like a sensitive boy, and like I always take shit with like it hits me like a ton of bricks, you know. And if someone was like, here's a record that can help,
or a movie or something like that, something that where they can relate to what's going on. And, I think there's a wave of parents now that are doing stuff like that where they're cognizant, that where previous generations were not. So, which is
look what Disintegration did, man. It's changing generations of children,
and even going back to that idea of sentimental value and stuff. It's like. It is ongoing, and it's going to be ongoing forever, I think, with this album, because it's like so many new things keep popping up. I mean, so many people are going to Sydney to see this, these shows, and that's going to be a huge part of their life, and it's like, that's like a fucking memory that they're going to associate with this album now forever, and it's like constantly, these things are going to be happening, and this album caters so well to all of it.
If I had the money, I would,
because they are real problems.
And like,
also
if there wasn't some sort of promise that they were going to play it in the U.S., I would feel a little bit differently about going. So, but it's like I said, I think that it's
gonna live on.
It's a relatable album to just being a human, and it's I think that doesn't change. Like that shit doesn't change. So everybody,
and the fact that, like we said with the production, it doesn't sound goofy in 80s or 90s, then it's safe.
We all
and there's
we all experience
and there's records throughout time. That it's undeniable, and it affects everyone, no matter when you hear it, when it was made. And Disintegration is of that ilk. It's like it's timeless.
I think what also brings the album such love is that there's not a bad track on the album, and they're all
there's no down period or
they're all fucking great. Like Wish, like Wendy Time, like
that
song's a piece of trash. Like it ruins it ruins like the
garbage song.
And then you have where you have Friday I'm in Love, which kind of ruins it too. It just this album there's a feel, there's a concept, and each song hits the right notes, and it's an album that I can listen to when I'm happy, when I'm sad, or or anything like that, and I can go from front to back and listen to it. And there's very few albums that you can do that for. It's a perfect record,
right?
So we live in a world where there's not that many of them.
Not much that's perfect in any category, so we'll take it. Cool, guys. Well, let's wrap on that note. I think we could only glorify this so much. And
I'm done jerking it off.
See you in another 30 years. Yeah, well, we don't want it to get too big of an ego. So now we can't listen to it for another 30 years, and we'll all report back on this day. At this time, 30 years from now, and we'll do another one. So,
Robert will be 90.
The bad boy's going to go cuddle up to his wife and whisper the lyrics to Lullaby in her ears. And I'm going to do a little quiet. What a great record.
Such a romantic. Cool. Well, for now, we've been Gavin and Chaz and Donald.
Talk
For
quietly.
the Holy Hour Podcast. Talk hard. Song. Disintegration. All right, there you go, guys. Thanks so much for listening, and special thanks to Chaz and Donald, as always, for delivering. You know, I'm honestly starting to think that we could probably not only make this an all-cure podcast, but we could have an all-disintegration podcast. Sorry, it's a little on the long side again, but this album is not to be taken lightly. And again, a giant thank you to Courtney and Shane. Please go check out Is There an Echo in Here podcast on iTunes. You will not be disappointed. And there's also a really good Instagram account that follows the podcast, Echo in Here Podcast. I believe there's some underscores separating the words there, but it should pop up if you punch in Echo in Here Podcast. And you can see lots of cool pictures and info on the podcast that way. So find that on Instagram. And just to wrap up business here, be sure to subscribe to our Holy Hour podcast on iTunes and YouTube now. We'll both simultaneously get new episodes, so whatever you prefer, they'll be out there. YouTube and iTunes side by side. And follow us there. Follow us on the Instagram at the Holy Hour Podcast, where you can get all the latest scoop on upcoming episodes and ideas on contributions and how you'd like to contribute. Or you can just email me directly at gavinconnor@gmail.com. Be sure to check out the Facebook page. That's the one that's got all the extra scoop and a thread if you want to discuss your thoughts on Disintegration 30 years in, or anything, all the episodes. Feel free to even backtrack to some old ones and leave some comments. I'll hopefully get the notification for it. And of course, I love to suggest quit dressing like a doofus. Go over to 17secondshirts.bigcartel.com, where you can check out all of Chaz's Cure-related shirts, unique, affordable Cure t-shirts. Go check them out. There's I think he just reposted some of his overstock in there, and you can pick up maybe some of the old ones, or else just bookmark it. Keep your eyes peeled. There's always new ones right around the corner. We're still celebrating Disintegration over there too, and bound to be some cool new stuff on the horizons. And otherwise, thanks so much for listening. We got a great episode. The long-awaited Artifacts episode should be coming up next. That's a long time in the making. Lots of cool contributions, but we finally got it ready for you guys, and everyone's sharing their most cherished Cure possession. So it's a good one. So be sure to check back in a couple weeks, and everything else should be out there waiting for you. So thanks so much for listening. Until next time, talk hard.
You want any more, you have to shout.
Thank you for the help. Visit us again. Disintegration.